Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to a very special live of the Simpa Life from Product Earth. I am joined by, ironically, my first guest when we started the podcast, Mr. Guy Coxall from Seed Our Future. He is the first guest for this brief little short series that we're going to do live here from Product Earth. And we're just going to ask a few questions, do about 15-20 minutes. So for anybody who already hasn't seen shameless plug, episode 1 of the Simpa Life podcast with Seed Our Future, who are you and kind of why are you here?
I'm here really to represent the Seed Our Future campaign. Seed Our Future campaign has been going for about 18 months now. What we're about really is pushing for the full descheduling of cannabis. So what that means is we want to see cannabis completely removed from the Misuse of Drugs Act so that it's available to all. So people should be able to grow their own, people should be able to consume, there should be access on the NHS for everybody, for all the different diseases and conditions that it can help with, which is pretty much everything.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. We've done a lot of research into the law, into the history of prohibition, and we've found that, the rhetoric of the Home Office, where they say they've got clear scientific and medical evidence of the harms of cannabis to individuals and society, is complete lies. It's all based on ideology and racism. We can prove that without reasonable doubt. And we want to see the Home Office put their hands up and say, yeah, we were wrong, we've made a mistake, there's been a 50-year war that hasn't worked, it's actually caused more harms, and liberate the plant. Give it back to the industry, but not just the big corporations. We want to see it so it's available to all the grassroots, the cottage industry. That's the way it should be. We've fought for this plant for over 50 years. We should have access to that plant, and we should be in charge of the industry of that plant.
Agreed, yeah. You raised a valid point there of liberation for the plant, not parts of it.
Yes.
Which I suppose brings me on to the next question, which is we're obviously sat here at Product Earth. The diversity here, this is the most diverse I've seen them involving the culture and the community, far more intimately woven to the structure of it, to the fabric of it. They're not just an afterthought, they are as important to this as the big corporations and the big sponsors.
Yeah.
And I think that this year especially is showing this this cohesion and this openness for communication and for conversation as to how we all advance moving forward. Because they may have got out the door first, but they're recognizing just being a CBD company or just being a hemp company isn't going to serve them or be genuine to the nature of the plant.
Yeah. There's too much disparity in this industry. People have different dichotomies between hemp and cannabis and medical and recreational, and we all need to come together because we all love the plant and we need to fight for that plant. It's there's lots of people here, great people. I love Product Earth. I was here 2 years ago. That was my first time here. And really, it's the biggest cannabis event of the year for me. I love the whole structure of it. But really, there's so many people who are unaware of what we're about and, how we can fight for it and how we can challenge the charges. And really, we need to get that unity. The logo for Seed Our Future campaign is Truth is our sword, unity our shield. So we've developed all the truth. We've got a very powerful sword that we can use against the government, but our shield is very small at the moment. We need unity. We need everybody coming together, the industry, the users, and the people who aren't aware. Education is key, and if we can get enough people behind it and get public opinion to change, that's what's going to win this war.
Yeah, 100%. So with that in mind, then what do you see here that is espousing that is pushing that? Do you see, because I look around and I see quite a lot of the companies and the people that in previous years would be like, we don't talk about THC or we don't call it cannabis, we have organically hemp-derived CBD, and they've changed the narrative a bit more. Would you say that's true across the board?
Yeah, well, it's kind of backfired on the industry, really. My history is I used to work for the Cannabis Trade Association as the compliance director, so I was in charge of a lot of the regulation for the CBD market years ago. And I always wanted to push, for everybody having access to full spectrum cannabinoids for health, for well-being, for whatever use. And obviously the CBD industry had to start with, trying to avoid THC and focusing mainly on CBD. But of course, it's a whole plant. You need that on-charge effect. And the novel foods thing that's happened, it's destroyed most of the industry. It's all going to isolate and synthetic, which should never have happened. And really, I mean, I was talking to the CTA yesterday and some of the industry, and we all need to pull together now and fight for this plant and make sure that everybody has access, increase the THC limits for industrial hemp, which of course is cannabis, and make there's so many dynamics to this plant. The industrial uses, the medical uses. We need to make sure that it's all respected.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you said, even there with the little air quotes, for people that are not viewing the video, Guy air quote, and it's something that I've got such a habit of that every time I mention, even like I had Hemp on the podcast the other week, it's going to be released shortly. And every time they mention that kind of low THC cannabis, and then I kept having to stop and go, I'm sorry to the audience, I'm not being antagonistic, hemp is it's become a colloquial term. It's the old English, literally in the dictionary says old English, as in it's an archaic term. It's not used in modern language.
No.
Therefore, we shouldn't be using it. The only reason it exists is because then you can softly talk about the industrial and commercial benefits of cannabis without having to deal with the stigmas of things like skunk psychosis, of talking about addiction or dependency, of talking about problematic consumption. And you can see why that division has been created. But the people that perpetuated it for profit are now suddenly, like I said, recognizing, wandering around here. And before I've gone from being quite tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, that's yourself, but I imagine is feeling it. People with money, with influence, are now like, so how do we do this?
Yeah.
We've pushed as far as we can. We admit we don't know enough. What can we do moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then stigma is the biggest thing. The government and the media for almost a century have had this propaganda campaign saying all of these lies about the plant, making people afraid of it. And that's the biggest issue. Education, as I said before, is key. And if we can educate everybody about the plant and that, schizophrenia, for instance, like you pointed out, you look at the increase of cannabis over the last 50 years, it's been exponential. But you look at the level of schizophrenia in society, and it's stayed at about 1% throughout. So, we need to get rid of these myths, make sure everybody knows the truth. And, there's nothing to be scared of. Nobody's ever died of cannabis in history. Not one death.
A lot of us have tried.
I bet you have.
Yeah, again, that's the thing of it. It's once you can look at it from the overview, once you can actually rationally put it down and go, right, here's this plan. Here's these thousands upon thousands upon thousands of potential applications for it. Yeah. And here is this one reason to demonize it. Here is this one excuse why we can go, because some people, a small minority, I think it's 9% according to the Global Drug Survey, Global Drug Survey, that have a potential for a problematic relationship with cannabis. So that means the 92% of people that are consuming it non-problematically, or that's quite a problematic term actually, but without dependency issues or without damaging their relationships, their personal life, or their professional career. Yeah. And so those are the people that we need to speak loudest. Yeah. So a lot of these companies here, they may sell the homogenized, standardized, safe products, but they're all consumers. They're all out around the fire last night enjoying this environment. I think that us all being here and the collective conversations that are going on lead to the acceptance. They go that it's not a case of them forging a new industry. It's us all working together to legitimize and recognize what has already been here for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is changing, and I really feel that we are going to see some changes in the near future. There's been a lot of pressure placed from all different angles. We've been doing a lot of work on the different laws, including driving. I mean, that's something I've been very passionate about this year, supporting people, because, anybody with a small amount of THC in their system loses their license, but they might not have smoked for a week. And it
seems very arbitrary low. They pick 2 micrograms per litre, which, I mean, there's a lot of an issue here because the science is lacking about cannabinoid conversion. So there's been quite a few academic papers written on the idea that an abundant consumption of CBD will actually cause conversion into THC in your system, even if it's a small trace amount that you could get the argument of build-up. So if it was, as it used to be, so less than 0.2, if you took a whole product, you'd get the milligram, then you potentially fall over that arbitrary limit. Yeah. Whereas now there is a small group of people starting to look at the idea of cannabinoid conversions and metabolic rates and all of this, and actually try and understand, because it's not just the arbitrary limit. It has to be about impairment. The law changed in 2015, obviously, to try to correct the idea of all these potted up drivers. But all they've done is then create another pathway of discrimination.
Yeah, well, it is discrimination. I mean, you actually look at the reason they changed the law in 2015. They say it's for a deterrent effect. Now, we've seen with the Misuse of Drugs Act that it hasn't deterred people from using the plan. It's also to increase prosecution. So it's all fraud. It's so that they can process people through the judicial system, make money from that. And at the same time, people are losing their jobs because they've got no driving license and they're not impaired. The blood tests that the police do is inadmissible in a court for impairment. So that they've got no proof of impairment and it's not a fair and just trial. So, you know.
But they fall back under the argument, though, that the law is the law. If the law is broken, you are guilty. Well, then that's the impairment isn't a matter of principle involved in the decision making here, which again is immoral when you really think about it.
It's illegal.
In principle, but unfortunately, because we live in a world of acts and statutes, they can be contradictory. They can be entirely in opposition, but it depends on which remit you fall. So if you then have that over that arbitrary limit, as far as the court's concerned, you're screwed. So it's then, as is the situation with a few people now, trying to get into a position with a judge in a higher authority to recognize this hypocrisy, be able to rule on compassion grounds, or even the fact that the law itself is frankly an arse, then it could get somewhere. But my fear is that apathy is a powerful drug. You know, we've been nestling and suckling upon that teat for the past 18 months during COVID, and I just worry about if people have that desire to want to see that change.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a desire, and we need to challenge the law in the higher courts, as you say. You know, there's no point going to a magistrate's court. It's a Mickey Mouse court. It's not even a real court. You know, they can't do anything there. What we need to be doing is going to the higher courts, challenging things like human rights. Now, in 2010, the UN General Assembly announced that the use, possession, or cultivation of an illicit substance, the criminalization of that is a breach of the human right to health, and especially if it's an essential medicine. Now, nobody can argue that cannabis is an essential medicine because we all have an endocannabinoid system. So if it's a breach of human rights at the highest level, and that always should supersede statute law, then the law is wrong and we have to hold them accountable. Human rights seems to be ignored in this country, in many countries. You know, Mexico has changed the laws under human rights. Does that mean we have less human rights than Mexicans? Human rights are the same for everybody across the world. We're born with them, and that's what we need to stand by.
I suppose it's the recognition of those rights. It is a universal truth here. You were born into a world of your basic human rights as secured by many international charters. But it's to whether you can find that within your region or territory in the world, and whether you can actually be protected for it, and whether it can be interpreted. So homosexuality in this country was illegal, and led to chemical castration and all kinds of abuse and destruction and mass suicide and just depressive, manic depressive sort of lives of people who were criminalized for expressing themselves in a way that is not wrong. And that is the same that is true with us, whether it be for cannabis or psychedelics or any entheogenic compound, or frankly, as far as I'm concerned, any drug. The harm of a substance is intrinsic to its nature, but that can be massively minimized when you have education and unbiased information about how to safely consume it, how to dose it, how to deal with potentially negative consequences. So I think my thing is always education is key. So that's something I do hope to see a lot more of at events like this.
And that's why I'm here, really. Myself and Phil Monk from WTU are doing a talk soon, going into 130 years of history of prohibition, demonstrating that all the laws are corrupt and illegal. In fact, they actually meet the legal definition of terrorism. So if we can get that message out to a load of the people here, and then they spread that message, eventually we will get to that tipping point. You mentioned, the homosexual discrimination. It was the same with the racial discrimination. You know, you look back in America where they fought the racial discrimination, eventually they won that. And that's what we need to do. That's what I'm saying. Unity is our shield. And until we come together and all fight for this plant, we're not going to see a change. So please, all the people listening to this, please do check out cedarfuture.co.uk is our website, and join the fight. Let's all work together.
Excellent. Perfect submission. So one final question I'll ask you is, what do you want to see next year? I suppose we've been here, we've celebrated a few of the good things. What do you want to see from this event next year?
I love that. There's very little I can actually criticize about this event. I love it so much. You know, I think they've got it pretty much perfect. But yeah, just more education. There's great speakers here talking about all sorts, from psychedelics to the law. You know, that's what we need. We need to get as many people, but we need to attract this event to people. You know, you're preaching to the converted. Everybody here already knows about the plant to a certain degree. What we need is to get this marketing campaign so we can get the general public out to actually see all of this and to hear this.
Yeah, sure. No, perfect. Yeah, Guy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, mate.
Appreciate it, brother.
Speak to you soon.